The federalism practiced in Nigeria have been constantly questioned by citizens and political analysts. This begs the question, how true is the Nigerian federalism? I am Folashade Adebi. Welcome to Vigilant. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Vigilant. I am your host, Falashade Adebi, and with me is
Mustafa Yusuf Adebola.
Okay, welcome, Mustafa, to the show. In today's episode of Vigilant, we'll be discussing how true is Nigerian federalism. So before we go into that proper, federalism is a mode of political organization that actually unites separate states or other polities within an overarching, or let's just say central political system in a way that allows each state to maintain its own integrity. Now, let us now look at Nigeria. Nigeria is a federal state. Nigeria practices federalism, and the central is actually the executive arm of the government, who gives rules and regulations to other states to follow. So, Mustafa, my first question to you would be, does Nigeria really practices federalism?
Okay, thank you very much. To answer this question, it's probably easier to just say yes or no.
Okay.
That will betray the intention of the question. The question basically is quite important today because most of what's going on in Nigeria stems from the authenticity of whether we are truly a federal state or not. And I use that, let's say, all pun intended, because there is a term that has been recently coined where we even go one step further to say true federalism. So you ask yourself, have we been lying to ourselves? So to answer the question basically is to look at the history of Nigeria and see how from pre-independence to independence and what we have today, how we've handed power over from one system of government to the other. I'll summarize in this case. Before independence, we had different constitutional reviews. We had Littleton, Richardson, and all of that. In 1954, we had the Littleton Constitution, and this basically was the British trying to give us a system of government to manage ourselves, although they were still in control of the country itself. The Richardson Constitution in 1954 was the first to give us this federal structure, where it created a federal state, and we had the North, East, West, and the Southern Cameroons. In 1960, we had something that looked like federalism, but it wasn't. It was in 1963 that we could call Nigeria a Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that's when powers were given to the country. And we had a system of the federal and the regions, basically. Unfortunately, due to interruptions we've had from the military rules, we've actually had to be counting our republics. So we are in the Fourth Republic actually since 1999. So that's basically what the Federal Republic does means basically is the fact that we have a federal state, or if I could call it that, we have a federal government that includes the central government, it includes the regional or state government, and it includes the local governments. That's basically what federalism is all about. Now,
Mustafa, I want to chip in something. I actually want to ask you a question. You made mention of the pre-colonial era, the colonial era actually, where we're governed by different constitutions. So do you really think those constitutions adapt to how Nigeria is? Because Nigeria is actually a multicultural country.
Exactly. So that's actually what led to the development of those constitutions. We had the Macpherson before, we had the Richards, and what usually happens is that because people felt that these constitutions were not really serving the unity of Nigeria. They were not treating everyone, would I say, equally. They kept on having constitutional reforms. And if you look at what we're having today, you keep hearing that call for a constitutional conference, even though we've actually had that. So basically, what the British responded to was trying to give us a system that reflected those criticisms that, this particular constitution is not serving the purpose that we need. So it was in this agitation, basically, that there was the response to having constitutional conferences, which mostly were held in United Kingdom.
Okay, thank you for the answer. So you were about to dive into the fourth region before I cut in, so you can continue from that.
Yeah, so basically what we have today is basically the Fourth Republic from 1999 Constitution, and that Constitution actually has the 1999 Constitution actually gives us 3 levels of powers, if you can put it that way, that forms the federal government, and that's the exclusive list, the concurrent list, and the residual list. So basically, the exclusive list is what the federal government actually has. That's the central government that we all know at Abuja. The concurrent is basically for the states, and the residual is for the local governments, if I can put it that way. So what a lot of people have been clamoring for recently has been that there seems to be so much power at the center. That's actually the exclusive list. And so some of the items to the exclusive list are things that have to do with currency, exploitation of mineral resources, citizenship, immigration, aviation, and all of that. And security, national security. And they feel there's been this feeling whereby it appears that the states are actually handicapped, and everyone seems to go off to Abuja to beg for performing the functions. And it's also another call of, can you actually govern Nigeria from the center, if I can put it that way, where you really don't know what is going on in the nooks and crannies of some certain parts of Nigeria, and you intend to exercise power. So why don't you devolve those powers to some of the federating states, basically, and let them have those control over the resources that belong to them. So there's been basically 2 tests that comes to mind right now. One of the tests was basically I think 1999 to 2002. I really can't remember the particular year, when the former governor of Lagos State tried to create some local governments, and it became a court case, and that was actually a test of who actually has the power to create
a state.
To create local governments within the states. And recently we've had another case where the Rivers State governor has actually challenged the federal government in terms of VAT collection. Collection. So you see, and I think that the state of Osun, one of the states that actually has gold, is also trying to say that, okay, we actually can control this, we can actually grant exactly. So what we are seeing is people are beginning to question the system of government. Some people feel it's unfair that there seems to be uneven allocation of power to, or resources that belong to those states that are generating it. And they feel like we need to renegotiate our existence, because if we do not do that, we're going to keep on having conflicts and, let's say, mutual suspicion.
Thank you, Mustafa. Well, for Nigeria, there is actually a state with different ethnic groups, and we are actually very diverse. So trying to place much power on a state, won't it affect states that do not have enough resources?
I think this is an interesting question, because, trying to manage a multi-diverse ethnic nation like Nigeria is actually not easy. And I think this is one of the reasons why we're having some of these agitations, basically. In fact, each year, you always have some certain individuals asking for states. So you ask yourself, don't we have enough states? Or is it that there are some people that are feeling cheated, particularly in the way the structure of the states are? So I think what we are seeing here is there's some political interest anyway, but it's more or less like making sure that there is responsibility for each level of government. So fortunately or unfortunately, if the politics of Nigeria presently makes it look like a way where all of the problems actually is with the federal government. And actually, there are some functions within the states themselves that they could actually affect, but for some reason they choose not to. And because most or a lot of Nigerians really don't understand the system of government to perform, it's almost like the problem is from the center. But if you look deeply, and I'm even just looking with the way the 1999 Constitution itself is, where we probably have some defects, if you look deeply, you will realize that we've actually not even maximized the potential of the Constitution. And so, in as much as you have agitation for states to be able to manage those, will I say, different ethnic groups, you want to call it that way, you also forget the fact that we also have local governments. And these local governments are actually the closest to the people.
And local governments are kind of like handicapped in Nigeria. They don't really have much say.
Exactly. So, in as much as you blame the top for not giving you so much power, you also have to look at yourself that, okay, the power you have, how much are you using it for those who are looking up to you, if I can put it that way. And I look at the makeup of Nigeria. Unfortunately, because of colonialism, it somehow destroyed the chieftaincy and traditional system of government, which is actually closer to the people. So when you ask me this question about different ethnic nations, I'll actually call them ethnic nations anyway, or different nations within Nigeria, what I look at is these people, this is their culture. Who do they revere, or who do they respect in their culture? Usually they have their traditional system. We've found a way where we don't seem to appreciate the importance of those traditional places in our society. And these are actually people that could give us solutions to a lot of problems. I've been to some places in Nigeria where you'll be amazed, like, in as much as you are calling the governor or probably the president, the person they actually respect is probably
the traditional ruler.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you realize that the kings actually, or most of the traditional councils, are placed under the local governments today anyway. They're placed under the local government. And so some states actually have a ministry, Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs. But what we have for most of them is just more or less like allocations and just giving them subventions and stuff like that. But the real
are you saying power should be transferred to the local rulers? Since we have the local government in charge of that, the local government oversees that. The local government should be in charge to do that. So are you saying power should be distributed evenly between the local government and the chieftaincy?
I think that would be
and the local rulers.
That would be a far cry right now. But I think there is an opportunity for partnership between the local governments and the traditional institutions. I think that's what I would say, because for you to effect your programs, you need the collaboration of these authorities. You can't just erase these authorities and expect that people will revert to them. And like I was trying to say, there are even some areas within some commercial cities in Nigeria where for you to resolve criminal issues, people go to the traditional council. So you ask yourself, you have the police, you have so many security outfits, but those within those areas don't respect those state institutions. What they refer to is the traditional institution within their area, because they feel more connected and they respect those positions. So the one part of the question you just asked now is basically allowing the local governments to perform the functions as expected. And this can make this call for everyone calls the president, everyone calls the governor, because sometimes when I hear people calling for the governor to do this, I'm wondering, like, what happened to your local government chairman? Like, these are the functions and duties of those individuals.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Well, from your answer, I can see you are trying to insinuate that you first start from the local government, the states not giving the local government much power, then you shifted to the local government not giving the local rulers much power. Am I on track?
Yeah, correct.
Mm-hmm. So my question to you is, what system of government do you think we actually unite those three together to achieve something sustainable for Nigeria?
I don't think I studied some forms of government, and I'm not really sure system of government probably would I say solve the problem, irrespective of the kind of system of government we have. It depends on how we decide to use it. We actually had at the time a federal military government, so it could give the unitary government so much power to determine what goes on. And some people have actually even argued, which is quite funny now, where you hear some people calling for the military to come back. You just imagine that, because they are probably saying that the effects they had from that rule to the kind of government we have now, you're not seeing justification. So if we are using the federal system system of government, it's more about how we intend to make it work rather than trying to create something else that is probably a new model. However, what I feel is, because we try to import a lot of concepts, I feel it's more or less the fact that we don't adjust them to our realities, to our history, to our kind of process that we have. At the time, we were practicing a parliamentary the system of government, and again we had unitary system of government. Now we have federal system of government, and people keep asking, okay, maybe probably even the regional system of government, probably this is actually better. But I really don't think it's more about the system of government. I actually feel it's like those individuals who had those responsibilities at that particular point in time, how they affected them. And that's why, for me, when I look at even some other form of systems of government around the world, you realize that some of them perform under different forms. And basically, it's what people have used what works for them to develop their society. And it's a question of sincerity of those elected officers, if you put it that way. If they are actually sincere, even if with how imperfect a particular system of government is, they could actually make it work to an extent. That's actually what I see in what's going on in Nigeria. So if I suggest that we need a new form of government, I'll probably just be theoretical. Being realistic is, okay, what we have.
Oh now, no, you can mention the theoretical aspect. So what system of government do you think will work?
Because we are actually still, normally someone like me will probably recommend regional system of government. However, when I also look at regional system of government, I also realize the fact that the population we had as at that time is quite different from what we have now. And basically, the essential part we are looking at is just basically power. So what regional government system of government, for me, for my estimation, what I observed did was it encouraged healthy competition. One reason for regional system of government is the fact that we, like the previous question you asked, we are a country of different nations, and we all have a history of where we are coming from. And if you look at the call for independence for Nigeria, there were some agitations of some people trying to grow at their pace. If you use one particular system for every, let's say, state or every nation, you are going to have issues. So a regional system of government, for me, allows each region to understand that, okay, this is actually what is common to us. This is actually what we want to achieve within the country called Nigeria. And it doesn't affect any other region which probably says, okay, this is actually
so it is within.
This is actually what we believe in. This is actually the pace we want to go at. And for me, it's encouraged by all the competition. We can actually also still achieve this within states. But unfortunately, now here's where the problem is. So if one particular state, for instance, let's say a state in the southeast, performs very well and is very good, the surrounding states around it, if they are probably not up to par, it's going to affect whatever developmental strides they are trying to achieve. So you have a federal government that is trying to attend to the needs of northwest, northeast, south. Like, what do they prioritize? So it's a regional system of government, for instance, allows a particular region to understand, okay, these are our priorities, our priorities, and they focus on them. And it doesn't have to do with every instance trying to call for the attention of the federal government to attend to their needs. And if you also look at some of the decisions that are being made today, you realize that anytime the federal government of Nigeria tries to make a decision, there's always this, and it's not even just now, like it was in 1999, there's always this, like, okay, what's in there for us? Like, why is it just this region we're focusing on? And there has been that mutual suspicion for a very long time. In fact, it is so bad that it has affected our development since the 1960s, where after the exploration of oil, we are meant to have like advanced in how we process it. But because there's always a constitution of why are you doing it in this particular region and not this particular region, it doesn't allow us to make any decision.
Okay. Thank you, Mustafa, for the answer. So do you suggest like a hybrid of both the regional system of government and the federal system of government, a hybrid of both federalism and regionalism? Since this is going to kind of like balance, it's going to balance each other. The issues, the cons of the regionalism, the federalism will balance it, and the cons of federalism, the regionalism will balance it.
That sounds like an interesting proposition, but I'm looking at. I think one of the things I try to do is I look at the theory, I look at the reality, like what's much more achievable. For instance, one of the challenges you have in that kind of situation is a situation where we have this desire, there is this quest for power.
Okay.
And it's going to be tough to find who the original head is, if I can go put it that way. In fact, this question you just asked is also one question that is always posed when you talk about some people trying to break away. Because you find out that, as you mentioned earlier, something about our diversity is the fact that even within a subset, there are also divisions. So usually trying to break away or feel like, oh, there's one united force is just like sometimes for me I see it as a fallacy, like it's an illusion, because by the time that reality sets in, you now realize how there's also another quest where this particular group feels that these guys are taking advantage of us. So for me, I'll actually suggest that the federalism that we seem to be practicing right now is about making it work for us than for me going back to the past, because I look at, okay, what are the obstacles we've had when it comes to some of these constitutional reforms, and trying to find what each group has agreed to. So I feel it's more about making this federalism work. And making it work itself is not just about looking at, okay, allocation of power. I feel is what these particular people who have been given power, what they are doing with it, that actually matters. And just to give a brief example is basically the states I see these days now seem to even be competing with the local governments. And some projects you really do not expect a state to be executing. You realize that they take so much joy, and they are actually usurping the powers of the local government in performing those things. And in as much as we haven't questioning the system of government we have now, one of the credits of this administration is also trying to test the development of power, trying to say, okay, you know what, let's give this money directly to the local governments rather than the states. So even if it probably appears that there is something that doesn't look right, there are some green lights from challenges. So I feel it's more about, no matter the system of government, let's ask those who actually have this power what they are doing. Unfortunately, what we have in Nigeria today is that there's a lot of power, but there's no responsibility. So
there's more of power, but no responsibility.
Yes, wow. Because if you have a local government chairman who actually doesn't, because I'm really passionate about this local government itself, because I feel like this is where a lot of effects can actually take place. So, but unfortunately, I don't think quite a number of people are really, in fact, they've really lost touch to the extent that those who want to get that power, the local government, are already looking at it for where they want to go to in the future. And because the states too have also kind of like tried to stop over that function, they're afraid of the threats. So you imagine a particular state government is afraid of one particular local government chairman performing so wonderful, and people are wondering like, oh, this guy is very good, do we need him somewhere else? So there's this trying to control that structure. And just to segue to about what you just asked now, is even about the political parties themselves, because they're the ones who produce these people who represent us, irrespective of whatever form of government we want to have. If political parties themselves are not structured in a way to make these things function, we're already deceiving ourselves. Because
I want to ask a question. What do you mean by the political parties themselves are not structured to make this work? Can you explain that?
So you ask yourself, why is it that we have this conflict between the states and the local governments? Why is it that we have this conflict between the central government and the state government? And one is easily the current example we have today. So the current political party leading us today, one of their manifestos basically was this trying to create a federal system, like restructuring basically. And you start asking, where do people derive their powers from? If your political party has a particular idea, if you can put it that way, this is actually the way we want things to go, you would actually see that playing out whenever their let's say their representative who wins any elective post, how that person performs. So a power is derived from somewhere else. But what we're having today is more or less that there's no creation. It's more or less like there's really no idea behind okay, let me retract myself, because if I say there's no idea, I think I'm being factually inaccurate. But most of the elected holders are not really bothered about what the party has said about this issue.
Do you want to be politically oriented? Do you want a platform where you get updated with socio-political issues? Then Vigilance is the right place for you. Join Folashade Adebi every Fridays 4 p.m. WAT to discuss socio-political issues in society.